So, it has been about 3 weeks of ownership with my 2026 Volkswagen Tiguan SEL R-Line Turbo. And I've really enjoyed this crossover as a daily driver. It has been phenomenal with its comfort, its luxurious amenities, and to me, it's the best deal at $45,000. However, though, this crossover is far from perfect. There are a number of cons that we have talked about in previous videos. But for the SEL R-Line Turbo specifically, there are some high expectations that this crossover doesn't meet quite yet. And maybe waiting a year or two might make this a better option, especially since we don't have a hybrid option here for this vehicle. So in today's video, we're going to go over the 5 reasons as to why you should not buy the SEL R-Line Turbo. Not the fact that you shouldn't buy a Tiguan in general, but just this trim, because I do think that you could be very happy with an S, SE, and SE R-Line Black, and the SEL R-Line Turbo might have some cons here that might steer you towards the competition. So if you're ready, then I'm ready. Let's dive right into this video. Starting off with something simple, and I'm not going to make a big deal of this, is with the Volkswagen Tiguan for this generation, it's not as practical as its rivals. In fact, I wouldn't even say it's on par with a lot of vehicles in this class. Now, there are some trade-offs here from last generation. For one, the Volkswagen Tiguan for the Mark II was large, cumbersome, it was not very athletic, and it was basically a brick on the roadways, whereas this generation is smaller, more compact, and gives you the driving characteristics you want to see at around $40,000 to $45,000. But unfortunately, there's a downside to all of this, and that's going to be the practicality. So behind the second row seat, you no longer get an optional third row. Now, I don't think that's a huge deal because you would go with an Atlas. But unfortunately, when it comes to the cargo space, this is a major downgrade. You're looking at right on 33 cubic feet of room. Now, this would be in line with the Subaru Forester, a Mazda CX-5, Subaru Outback, but falls way behind a Honda CR-V, Toyota RAV4, Hyundai Tucson, and Kia Sportage, whereas last generation was basically a German Honda CR-V in that way. Now, this is better than what you're going to find out of a Volkswagen GTI or Golf R, so it's a nice upgrade in that way if you do have a growing family. But there are better options out there at around $30,000 to $45,000. That's one thing to keep in mind here, because the practicality is just the beginning when it comes to the intangibles for the Volkswagen Tiguan. You're not going to get intangibles, you're going to get something else, which is a plus, but you got to remember here that if you're someone who's looking for the more practical elements out of a crossover like this, you're not going to find that out of the Tiguan. Moving on to number 2 is going to be the distracting technology, and mostly this 15-inch touchscreen, because I think it's unnecessarily large for a crossover in this market, and the tablet head units need to stop. We got to stop seeing this in these vehicles, whether it is for a mainstream crossover or luxury vehicles, whether it's in a Volkswagen Tiguan or a Mercedes-Benz C-Class. I'm tired of it. I really am. Yes, it looks good. Visually, it looks good. And in pictures, this makes this crossover look very luxurious. But then you start using this head unit and you're like, wait a minute. I really don't like it at all. In fact, it's not intuitive. And it's mostly when I'm pairing this up with my Apple CarPlay. So when I use Waze, when I'm looking at this map here and I want to turn on my mic so I can give the address here, I have to reach to the right side of the screen on the passenger side. Or if I want to notify that there's a vehicle on the side of the road, a police officer, anything, that's on the right side. I have to reach to the right for that. It just makes things a bit more difficult when you are driving. My eyes are focusing on the screen rather than the road ahead of me. Also, because this infotainment system is so in-depth with so many different widgets that you need to go through and customize, it just gets to a point where it's like I'm looking at the screen more than the road. And that's not safe. When I first got this vehicle, I found myself kind of getting out of the lane a bit because I'm looking at features, I'm looking at ambient lighting, I'm looking at navigation, I'm looking at vehicle settings. And I do think that if you are someone who isn't really tech focused or technologically inclined, park the vehicle, get all the settings done when you are parked and stationary, and don't even focus on this thing when you are driving. Now, thankfully, there are some quick access icons on the top of the screen, and also, and this might surprise you, The climate control settings are actually very easy to use. They really are. You would think that with this bar here and sliding it backwards and forwards, it's not going to be useful. It actually is. I've gotten used to that. That's the one thing I'm a bit surprised by myself here, that I've actually liked that, where it's not as difficult and it's not as inaccurate as I thought it was going to be, having reviewed this vehicle and the GTI in the past. That is one thing I do like here. Now, also with the icons at the bottom of the screen, it's very easy to access your fan speed, your max AC, and fan directions. So I do like that here. You don't have to dive into your climate menu if you don't want to. Also, your climate settings can be programmed for when you turn on this vehicle using the remote start. So I do like that. But when it comes to this screen though, you've probably seen it in the videos when I have the camera on the moonroof. It is so massive, it is so large, and it takes away from your peripheral vision. That I really don't like. Also, one thing I don't like here, and I think it's unnecessary, and thankfully I can turn it off, is the head-up display. Now, some people are going to disagree with me on this, because a lot of you do like the head-up display with the digital speedometer and traffic sign recognition. I personally think it is unnecessary to have in any vehicle. I really don't like it. I had to turn it off because it was drawing my attention too much and I wasn't focusing on the road. And that's just me probably coming from a Subaru WRX or a Mark 7 GTI where there is no technology, no full digital gauge cluster. So that just might be my own personal takes there coming through. But I will say the technology, I really don't like it as much. I really don't. Yes, you can access experience mode and you can customize your ambient lighting. It's all that really cool stuff and the massaging seats. But at the end of the day, it is so useless in my opinion. Now at number 3, this is going to surprise you because this was actually a reason to buy the SEL R-Line Turbo. And that's going to be pricing. It might sound like I'm contradicting myself here, but I gotta be fair and I gotta be unbiased because at $45,000, this is a fantastic value. It undercuts the Audi Q5, BMW X3, and Mercedes-Benz GLC, and you get a long list of features and amenities that makes this a no-brainer. But if you like the Volkswagen Tiguan, you like what it's offering at the SE and SER line black levels, but you want better performance, you're out of luck. You're forced to spend $45,000. And some vehicles out there, some rivals, do offer turbocharged 4-cylinder engines below $45,000 with better performance. Whereas when you're looking at spending around $40,000 with an SE or SER line black, you're getting 201 horsepower, 221 pound-feet of torque, which is more than adequate. But when you're looking at it from an overall driving experience perspective, when you want to have a vehicle that feels a bit more exhilarating and fun, you're going to have to make some sacrifices there for the lower trims. And it has nothing to do with the features necessarily, but it comes along with that performance. And I just think that you're paying a premium, yes, but there could be better values out there under $40,000, under $45,000. And that's where, on the flip side, because yes, this undercuts the luxury crossovers, there are other crossovers out there that undercut this, and they might be a better choice. Now, unfortunately, we've reached the point in this video where I think the negatives start coming into play depending on what you're looking for out of a crossover in this class. And it starts with the fuel efficiency, or lack thereof. I would argue it's abysmal, but looking at the averages that I've been putting up, it falls right in line with what Volkswagen is saying here. You're looking at right around 22 miles per gallon in the city and 29 miles per gallon on the highway. I have a combined average of 25 miles per gallon right now. A couple of weeks ago, I went on a cruise with a good friend of mine to pick up his new, to him, 1989 Jeep Cherokee with a 5-speed manual. Beautiful, beautiful vehicle. Went up to Maine, a 250-mile round trip, and the best I could muster on the highway, going up 95 and going down 95, was 28.5 miles per gallon. And that was at around 60 to 65 miles per hour. I mean, I was hoping for something just a little bit better, although I am going uphill, going into Maine, so that kind of maybe played a role into that. And also, I just broke this vehicle in, so maybe fuel efficiency will improve over time. But there are far better options out there at around $40,000. There's far better options out there at around, say, $35,000 that can give you a hybrid powertrain that gives you better fuel efficiency. Even naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engines will give you fuel efficiency in the low 30s on the highway. And I think that's where the Tiguan is going to let you down the most. It's going to be very disappointing when you're taking a look at that fuel economy because you will be going to the pump. Now, Volkswagen does say you can fill up on 87 octane. I don't recommend that. I really don't, because you do have a higher output turbocharged 4-cylinder engine here. And one thing I noticed is that the dealership put in 87 octane and this thing rode horribly. It rode really bad. Like it felt like the engine was struggling a bit. It almost felt like it was bogging down a bit. So I put in 93 octane from Shell. It's the only place I go to. I'm not sponsored by them, by the way, but thankfully we have those in Massachusetts. And I'll tell you, this thing drives so much better than it did before. It's so much more smoother. The accelerations are more linear. I do think this transmission performs a little better when you do put in 93 octane. That's just my take, just what I've experienced here with this vehicle. So, you know, yes, you're going to have the option to go with a cheaper gas. I would say don't do it. Don't do it. Because you could do the same thing with the Volkswagen GTI. But I've noticed, being a longtime Volkswagen owner with a GTI, my dad had an all-track, it does not like these vehicles. This EA888 doesn't really like regular fuel. It likes premium fuel. It performs better on premium fuel. So you have two downsides there. One, poorer fuel economy, and then two, you're paying more at the pump. So that, to me, fuel economy is going to be a negative here for the Mark III Volkswagen Tiguan. And lastly, at number 1, and this isn't necessarily a reason as to why you shouldn't buy a Volkswagen Tiguan SEL R-Line Turbo, but rather to temper your expectations, is that this isn't a lifted Volkswagen GTI. And I know people are going to be running to the comment section saying, "That's not what it was supposed to be anyway." Yes, but car reviewers and journalists are running with that idea that it is because of the turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, because this new MQB Evo platform, because there is some stiffness and rigidity to this chassis and suspension. And yes, because of all of this, it's one of the better handling crossovers in its class. But on a winding back road like this, I really don't feel comfortable hustling it in the corners like a BMW X3 or Alfa Romeo Stelvio, or maybe even an Audi SQ5. But it doesn't need to be that. In fact, at $45,000, this is a luxury crossover. This feels more like a Q5 when you're at speed between 40 and 80 miles an hour. It drives really, really smooth. Now, a lot of your feedback is going to be coming from the steering input when you are in sport mode. It is stiff, and it does give you a bit more of a sensation that you feel connected to the roadways and this vehicle. The only other crossovers I can think of that can compare to this would be the Mazda CX-5 and Mazda CX-50. Those are the only other two athletic crossovers at this price point that I can think of that could match the Tiguan when it comes to its handling and just its overall cornering ability. But again, this is not going to be the main selling point here out of the Tiguan. With this 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, you are going to have a 0 to 60 time of around 7 seconds, which is about a second and a half better than the other 3 trims. Now, if you're someone who doesn't need any of that, then I think going with an SE R-Line Black would be the best solution, the best alternative, because you'll get the same handling and cornering out of that model because Volkswagen didn't retune the suspension for the SEL R-Line Turbo. So that kind of brings me back to the pricing too. You know, at $45,000, is it worth it when it comes to the overall performance? I don't want to say it's not, because this Turbo 4 definitely is an incentive to buy and makes the Tiguan far more appealing. But when you compare the pricing, or you come back to the pricing and then match it to the fact that this isn't going to be a sporty crossover, that's where you can start arguing and going back and forth with yourself and saying, you know what? I could save about $3,000, maybe $5,000, and go with an SE R-Line Black and be pretty happy. And I think that would be the way to go. But I just think that what journalists and car reviewers are doing here with this crossover is a major disservice, because they're overselling a product that Volkswagen themselves, in my opinion, undersold. Because you're getting a vehicle that feels very well refined. When you are on the highway, when you are on a back road like this that's smoothly paved, it is comfortable. It's a luxurious experience. It's not a sporty experience, but we do have the engine to match all of that, making this a crossover, in my mind, a vehicle that could be compared to the luxury crossovers at around $50,000 to $55,000. Now, whether you're going to do that or not, whether you agree with that or not, I think that's kind of irrelevant. But when you're looking at vehicles in this class and you want a sports crossover, this is not going to be that. But if you want a luxury crossover, look no further than the Tiguan SEL R-Line Turbo. So guys, let me know what you think here about the SEL R-Line Turbo. Are some of these cons a deal breaker for you, especially the fuel economy and the practicality? Like I said before, the intangibles is where this vehicle is lacking the most, but also that pricing too. I had no issues paying $45,000 for a Volkswagen Tiguan, especially with a crossover that's offering this amount of features and amazing also with that powertrain. But I know a lot of you out there could find better when it comes to the performance at around 40 grand. So it really all evens out at the end of the day that yes, this is a great crossover. It's a game changer. However, though, if you're looking at value, you're looking at intangibles, you also want fuel efficiency, there are better choices in this class. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.